Okay, so hello, everyone who might be listening. Welcome to the Think Zebra podcast.
Yay!
This is very exciting. I don't know about you, but I'm very excited.
Excited and nervous.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah.
So I guess first of all, who are we and why have we actually decided to start making a podcast is a great place to start.
Perfect.
Do you want to go first?
Okay. I'm Kate. Hi. So I have EDS, which is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, type 3 hypermobility, fibromyalgia, and several other comorbid issues. I like to keep it in the family.
Keep it fresh.
Yeah. Everything new. I'm ready for 1 year without being diagnosed with something. So, yeah. Peter asked me to do this, and I thought it was a great way to spread awareness. So I'll put that on Peter.
Sick. So my name's Peter. I'm a student. I'm going to be starting a PhD in chemistry very soon, which is kind of scary, but yeah. And about 2 years ago, in 2018, I was diagnosed with stage 3A melanoma. And basically since then, after some tests, we realized that I'm just genetically predisposed to developing melanoma, which means that it's something I'm going to be handling with for the rest of my life, essentially. It's not as morbid as it seems, but there are some lighter sides, I guess, and hopefully we can sort of emphasize some of those bits
The fun
with
bits.
this podcast. Yeah, the fun bits of having chronic illness.
Yeah. I mean, there's always fun bits, isn't there?
So essentially, the podcast is basically just going to be me and Kate discussing various topics relating to chronic illness. We're just sort of going to have a chat, have a bit of a laugh, I guess kind of discuss some of our experiences. We're all too frankly aware of like the ups and downs that come with chronic illness. So hopefully it'll be quite a frank and honest discussion. You will be able to find the podcast on all kinds of social media. We have a YouTube channel, the Think Zebra podcast. We are on Twitter and Instagram as Think Zebracast. We also have an email address, thinkzebrapodcast@gmail.com. So if you want to reach out, then feel free to drop us a line. We'll be more than happy to hear from you.
I'd be ecstatic.
Honestly, just say hi, even if you have nothing else to say.
Yeah.
We'd be glad.
Just an emoji. Be happy with that. Just a thumbs up.
And I don't know about you, Kate, but one of my motivating factors in trying to set up this podcast was the fact that so many people, I think, just aren't aware of issues that people with chronic illness face, or are trying to come to terms with their own story relating to chronic illness.
Oh, 100%.
Trying to have a sort of more open platform for discussion might be able to help someone. It might just provide a safe space for people to come and just have a bit of fun with other people who understand, that kind of thing. And it might help other people who maybe have loved ones who have chronic illness to kind of help understand what's going on in their heads, I guess, a bit.
Yeah, I feel, same for me really. As you know, my blog you've seen.
Yeah, it's a great blog.
Thank you. It's amazing. And but I did it to sort of help myself get accept and raise money. It has helped. But it's helped other people understand, which I think has, understand, I suppose, the daily things people with chronic illness go through.
Yeah.
Which I think is a positive, because most of the time people just think, oh, what, they're fine, or it'll go away.
Yeah.
We don't seem to understand the word chronic.
Yeah. No, I feel that. And then we have a very funky name, might I say, the Think Zebra podcast. There is a little bit of a story behind that, so I'll let Kate tell you.
So medical students are told that you always look for the most common illnesses. So the phrase they're told is, if you hear hooves, think horses, not zebras. So you always look for the most common stuff that can be fixed as well. So zebras are the symbol for rare and chronic illnesses because we like to be different. Yeah, I think it's to show that we're proud.
And one thing that I will say right off the bat is that a lot of the things that Kate and I will probably be saying are things that we've had in our first-hand experience, things that we've come across, things that we've dealt, things that we've felt while we've gone through it. So they might not necessarily apply to everyone. Like, everyone has a different story and a different journey with their own chronic illness. So ours may be examples, but they're not the hard and fast rule for what everyone goes through. And we'll invite people as and when we're able to sort of share their experiences. And that's the other thing that, like, we'd like to hear from you guys as an audience, to hear some of your experiences as well, because
love it.
Everyone is different.
And everyone deserves a voice to share their experience.
Exactly. So, I guess, without further ado, let's just jump straight in. What is the topic this week, Kate?
Diagnosis. Let's start with an easy one.
Yeah, a nice light-hearted one.
Yeah, a bit of fun, innit? It's like a one that everyone goes about.
Yeah. And actually, I think the interesting thing is that both Kate and I have very different experiences with diagnosis.
Oh, they're like the opposite, aren't they?
Yeah, so hopefully that might help people out there understand that there is no one right or wrong way of getting diagnosed.
And someone else might be easier, someone else might be harder, but it doesn't matter as long as you get the right diagnosis. That's all that counts. So always advocate for yourself as well.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a bit about your story and how you got diagnosed.
So EDS I've had my whole life, I just didn't know it. And then I was in a train crash when I was 16, came back from college, which was a bit of fun, you know. And
nice. Yeah.
I messed up my knee pretty badly. I thought it was normal because I was always like dislocating, doing stuff. I thought it was normal. And then, so I waited, as you do, walk home on a messed up knee, and then went to college the next day, and it wasn't that 5 days later I went to the doctors and said what I had, then I went to hospital, and then physio, and it was physio and I wasn't getting any better and I was still messed up. They referred me to a specialist physio and then a rheumatologist, and I had a lot of tests done, ruling stuff out. So with EDS, it's a genetic condition, but I've definitely got the worst form if I didn't start it. But there's a genetic test for every other type apart from the type I've got. So that is about everything else. It affects your collagen, so I've messed up everywhere in my body basically.
Fun.
But I had tests to rule out everything else. And then a year later after that, I had more tests done and I got heart issues, bit of fun. And then a year after that, I went to see a pain specialist, then did more tests, and then diagnosed with fibromyalgia as well. So it's a lot of testing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird to know, like, there's stuff that I had when I was younger, and like I was always in pain, I thought it was normal, and like, but there's stuff to see what I did when I was younger that I now know is because I have EDS.
Yeah.
But I mean, the train crash is horrible, but I'm thankful for it, because I wasn't, I'd still be suffering, but probably wouldn't know what I had.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Hindsight is always 20/20. You look back and you're like, oh, that's what that was.
Yeah, thank you. So, but yes, that was sort of mine. Like, still a lot of fighting.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Yeah, I think quite often people think you get one diagnosis and that's it. But a lot of the time, that's not where it ends for a lot of people. Like, there's so much more that comes after. Yeah,
I've had a diagnosis, at least one diagnosis every year, apart from last year. So I've had one this year, January. I got all through 2019. In January, I just got a new one. So thanks.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, I was like, I'm so proud of myself. I was like, well done, Kate, you've done it. And I messed that up.
A fitting start to the year 2020, I feel.
Yeah, I feel like it's, set the basis for the whole year. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. Gonna apologise for that.
Yeah, it's all Kate's fault.
Yeah, real sorry. I mean, I'll try not to do it next year, but yes, that was my sort of story. But yours is pretty different, isn't it?
Yeah, mine is really different. Essentially, it all kind of starts with my sister for me, actually. So she was in, oh, I don't know, I think it was her third year of university, maybe just going into her fourth year. And basically, she just felt really strange about a mole that she had on her arm. So she went into the doctor and they were like, it's probably fine, but we'll do a biopsy of it just to check it out. So they did a biopsy, they got the test results back, and they found out that for her, it was stage 1A melanoma, which is like one of the earliest possible stages you can catch it at. So it was quite like a relief, but quite odd how my sister just had this feeling about that mole.
Yeah.
So then from then on, as someone who's grown up with a lot of moles just on my body naturally, I was like, wow, I should probably pay a lot more attention to what's going on my skin, you know? So then the next year, which was in 2018, I was preparing for my second year exams at uni. So I was very stressed, but I just noticed on the back of my neck that I had a mole that for as long as I can remember, I think it had always been there. But for whatever reason, it started bugging me and I felt like it had got a bit bigger and a bit darker than I remember it being. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get it checked. It's on my mind. At the very least, they might take it off and tell me it was nothing. Um, so I have surgery, I think literally a day or two after finishing my second year exams, which was such a great start to the summer.
Yeah.
So then I had this mole removed and they did the biopsy, ran loads of tests. They came back and they said it was stage 2A melanoma because at that point they hadn't realized that it spread anywhere. So stage 2A being slightly more advanced than what my sister had experienced, slightly more serious. But at that time, we just thought maybe it was a coincidence because both me and my sister are very fair, like we're sensitive to the sun. We thought that was probably just it. But then they decided, because of the coincidence, the link between my sister and I, that they thought they'd run some genetic testing on my biopsy just to see. And I had some blood tests done, at which point they came back and told me that I was actually had a genetic mutation. For the science inclined of you, it was a deletion in my gene causing a frame shift in the CDKN2A gene, which is thankfully one of the more well-known cancer-related genes. But essentially, the long story short is that I was genetically predisposed to developing melanoma, glioblastoma, which is sort of brain tumors, and pancreatic cancer. And from then on, I've had surgeries here and there since doing this, that, and the other, which I'm sure we'll discuss many a time in the future on this podcast. But like I say, it's just something for me that's never going to go away. And for a long time, I remember thinking, like, yeah, it kind of sucks, but I wouldn't class it as a chronic illness because so many people have it worse. Like, it doesn't affect me that badly. Like, I can handle it. It's fine. And actually only recently, I think, in the last couple of months or so, I've actually sat down and been like, no, this is something that's going to affect me long term. It's something that is impacting my health significantly. I think actually this does more than qualify as a chronic illness.
100%.
And there's nothing wrong with me finally accepting that label, you know?
I was with you, I found it hard to accept.
Yeah, I think that's quite common for a lot of people. When you're initially sat down and told, oh, we think this is what might be causing you difficulties.
Yeah.
It's like, it feels like a lot to take in all at once.
You get it, yeah. I think my, when I found out, mine was slightly different because it was like a relief that I wasn't crazy because so many people say it was in your head.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my god, it's got a name. And then you actually let it sink in and you're like, oh shit, it can't be fixed.
Yeah.
So the initial one was sort of relief more than anything. and then it hits you, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people think that, oh, you get a diagnosis and then it kind of leads to a resolution of some kind.
Mm.
But I think for a lot of people, that's really not how it works. It takes a lot of time and conscious effort to really come to terms with what that means for you and how it's going to affect you going forwards in your life. If there was one piece of advice that you could give to someone who's going through the process of being diagnosed or has just received a diagnosis, what do you think you would say?
Oh, I think don't hide it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because I didn't tell hardly anyone when I first got diagnosed, and
Yeah.
I think just be open and like be honest about how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Honestly, I think I was the same for a really long time. I told the people in my life that I would have to live with day to day because
Yeah,
they would need to know. But other than that, I was like really tentative about whether or not I should tell
yeah,
people
same.
because it feels like whenever you start talking about it, you're like, oh, am I just unloading all of my shit on
Yeah,
one person? And then you feel like guilty for
yes.
putting them through that.
Oh, I hate the feeling guilt you get with this.
Yeah, honestly,
Like
it's
all
one of the
the
worst
time.
things, I think.
Yeah, like you feel guilty over basically everything.
Yeah, it's just like because you know it's a lot. When you tell
Yeah,
someone else exactly step by step what you've been through, it you realize at the same time as them just how much you've been through.
yeah,
And it's like, shit, wow, this is pretty bad, you know?
yeah. You're like, ah. And also, when I think it's important because even it takes a while to accept it, but even once you've accepted it, it can still hit you, and you've got those emotions again. Like be
Mm,
open about that as well. Like it's fine to like be angry about it at some point, even in the
yeah,
future. Like all your feelings are valid. And
yeah,
don't think just
definitely.
because I've had this for this amount of time, I should be all right. Because something still happens. Like you get worse, you get that diagnosis. There's something you're allowed to feel everything you feel.
Yeah, exactly. I can't even tell you the number of times that I've been just living my life and being like, yeah, no, I'm absolutely fine. Like, I've got this is fine. And then I'll have to have like a phone call with the hospital or something,
Mm,
and they'll tell me like the next step of my treatment
yeah.
or what we need to do next. And then it will hit me all of a sudden, and I'll be like, you know what? I really just need to cry for a bit and just get
Yes.
it over with.
Yeah. Don't hold those tears in because then it just comes out even worse later on.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you hold it in and you really try and bottle it up, it's only gonna explode at some point
Yeah.
later, and it's
And
gonna be
it makes a
so much
mess.
messier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I understand it. I'm guilty of doing that myself.
Oh, 100% same. I still am sometimes now.
Exactly, and I'm like, perhaps hypocrisy thy name is me
Mhm.
here in saying that. But I think
No.
if you are able to open up about it and try and talk
Yeah.
about it, then it will be easier to handle for both you and the people around you, I think.
Yeah. I think like we're all still learning. Like I've been diagnosed longer than you have, and I'm still learning. And your whole life you'll still be learning. You'll be like 90 and still learning.
Yeah.
So,
No one is an expert. Like, no one
yeah.
knows it all. No one knows exactly the perfect way to handle it. Like, you do whatever feels right for you, I think.
Yeah, like sometimes I'm really good at speaking, and other times I'll bottle stuff up, and then like another time I'll be good at speaking about it again. It's not perfect. Like sometimes when I bottle up, sometimes I speak about it. Like there's no rhythm to it. It's
Yeah.
just how it sort of works. So
Yeah.
yeah, don't whatever you're doing, no one's wrong with how they're dealing with it.
Yeah. And just be kind to yourself as well over it because, like,
Yeah,
you are going through a lot. Like, take your time. There's no rush to process it either.
yeah. Don't like try to hurry yourself up or blame yourself for stuff, or like say you're not doing things well enough or properly or all this stuff. You just make it 100 times worse for yourself and for the people around you.
Yeah. The main kind of takeaway, in my opinion, is the fact that, like, you saw the stark contrast between mine and Kate's stories. Everyone's diagnosis story is different. And like you might be diagnosed with something you didn't realize, and then you only put the pieces together afterwards about how it's been affecting you. Or it might be something that you've been handling for a really long time and you've been living with. That you've been working towards a diagnosis. So like, don't feel like you're out of time or things aren't going the way that they should be, because there is no right or wrong way. Like sometimes it's frustrating, but it takes as long as it takes, or sometimes it just comes out of nowhere. Like you just got to handle it as best you can in the moment, I think.
Just remember that everyone's different, and how someone else does stuff doesn't mean that's how you need to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think might have prohibited your getting your diagnosis?
I think that's a tricky question for me, because mine seemed to fall into place really quickly.
Yeah.
And I think because I had like some of the family history, like with my sister, everyone was a lot more hot on it, and they sort of like,
Yeah.
oh, there's a pattern here. There's definitely something going on that we haven't quite noticed yet. So they put in a lot more time and effort. So I think with that regard, I think my chronic illness diagnosis was fairly easy to come by, if that makes
Yeah, well,
sense.
you and your sister did the right thing of when you had the wrong feet, when you had the feelings that something wasn't right. You guys
Yeah,
did the right thing straight away.
yeah. I think trying to listen to your body, like you know what's normal for your body and what's not. So when you notice things that aren't quite normal, it's perfectly fine to question them and to seek advice from professionals about it. But I don't know, I think maybe you probably have a different answer to that question than I do.
I suppose with my EDS, like I've never not been in pain. So it's gotten worse as I've gotten older, and that is degenerative. But like when I was younger, you think it's normal, you can't express the difference.
Yeah.
And then when you've lived with it, even though you know it's not normal, you're like, well, this is just me, it's just my body.
Yeah.
But there's stuff, because it's so widespread, because it's the collagen that's, what's the word? That's messed up, can't think of the word. You take it, thank you. Because that's it, it affects everything. So when I was younger, like problems I had with my feet and my knees and my throat and ears and all that, they're all a part of it, but they're also different. So, and it's, doctors don't really know about it. They know that more now. Like even when you're younger and you know it hurts to do something which doesn't seem like it hurts anyone else, or you seem to find it harder, mention it. I just thought, well, obviously when I was really young, I thought it was normal, and I thought, oh, maybe this is just me. That I was just living with it.
Yeah.
And I was because I did stages when I was younger, just living with it. And I think you've got to sort of, like when you know it's happening to other people and you get to that age, go, mum, dad, doctors, whatever, like this isn't normal.
Yeah.
That's what
I was going to say, I suppose it's kind of trickier with chronic illnesses like EDS, because your normal isn't necessarily the same as anyone else's normal.
Yeah, exactly. Like I still don't know when I'm doing stuff which I should be doing because it's hypermobile.
Yeah.
Like I'm still doing stuff now where I'll do something, people go, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just doing this, thinking everyone can do it. You know, like, or so there's still stuff that I'm still learning about which I don't know is not normal.
Yeah. It all kind of stems back to the same point, I think, in some ways, because it's like communication is the key in terms of processing what you're going through, in terms of trying to come to some sort of answer or some kind of diagnosis. You need to communicate with the people around you to find out what is right, what's wrong, what's normal, what's abnormal, like how you can try and treat it better, and how you can handle it better emotionally as well together as a team. Stick by your loved ones, and hopefully they'll have your best interests at heart, so they won't do you wrong, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
All right, so I reckon that brings us fairly neatly on to our second segment, if you will. And essentially what we'd like to do with this segment is talk a little bit about the representation of chronic illness within the media, whether that's in TV, film, music. So for this week, what have we got, Kate?
We have got Brain on Fire, the film on Netflix.
So, right out of the gate, I'm going to say this film was exhausting to watch. So essentially, this film centers around a character whose name I can't even remember. So that might give you an indication of how good the film is. Susanna.
Okay.
So it's based on the story of a woman, Susanna Cahalan, I believe, and her journey with anti-NMDA receptor encephalitis, I believe, was the diagnosis she was given during this film. But essentially, it means that it's kind of an autoimmune disease. So her body's immune system was attacking the right side of her brain and causing it to get really inflamed, which then started a set of events that meant her condition was degenerating quite rapidly. She began to not really be able to communicate, walk, all of those kinds of things in quite a short space of time. And the film starts off with the classic black screen that says based on real events. And I am always so wary whenever a film says that. I'm instantly like, okay, but how much is it based on real events? Because the creative liberties that people take, I understand they have to try and make it film worthy or like a story that comes across well in film. But I have to say, this film, I think, could have done a lot better.
I agree with you. So much.
So it kind of starts off with Susanna, the main character, is like trying to become like a high-flying writer in New York City.
No, it starts off with her sort of in a hospital bed with the wires wrapped around her screaming.
Yeah, we have a nice flash forward and then a rewind.
With her strapped down to hospital bed, and it goes going, have you ever felt trapped in your body or your mind and want to get out? Which, to be fair, I have done when I can't move. But I haven't, it's not how I start a film.
Yeah. So she has like her little sort of what seems to be an idyllic life with her boyfriend, her family. Yeah, and they're all like celebrating her birthday. And then slowly she kind of starts seeing things, is kind of how it starts. She thinks she's been bitten by bed bugs at one point. There's a really weird scene of her just like staring at her arm. And there's like this really weird scene where she's trying to sleep in her bed in her flat. And there's the sound of this tap dripping in the next room.
And she just shouts at the tap.
Yeah, she starts shouting at the tap and getting really, really angry at this tap.
Don't do it again. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's my impression.
Yeah, and I was just like, I get it. She's delirious, but you don't have to pass her off as this person who's actually going insane.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of where it started to go downhill for me. And that's not to say that everything in this film was bad.
No, I like some of the ways it represented some stuff that they went through. Yeah.
I thought essentially it did a fairly good job of trying to explain how Susanna as a character and as a person, moreover, was trying to balance her normal everyday life with what she was going through. It really highlighted like how much she was trying to hold everything together, but was really struggling under the pressure.
Yeah, which we all do.
Yeah.
Like,
definitely.
We're all doing that all the time with chronic illness.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good.
I think fundamentally, though, this film at its core was not the story of Susanna. I felt like this film was the story of how it impacted her family more than it impacted her.
100%.
And I thought that was a really strange choice to make.
Yeah, it's meant to be a film based on Susanna, but it was more about how her boyfriend and her mum and dad saw her and her work colleagues and that.
Yeah. Because there's that really odd scene as well where her work friend finally comes to visit her in hospital after God knows how long.
Yeah.
And she like sits down and tries to talk to her. And obviously at this point, Susanna's basically unresponsive because of her condition. And then there's like this long scene of her friend like waltzing out of the room, tears streaming down her face. And she's really upset. And it's just like, I'm sorry, but like, yes, obviously it's impacting the people around her, but what about Susanna? Like, imagine how she's
Yeah,
feeling through all of this.
she's stuck in there. They were talking about like how it impacted everyone else. And I was thinking, fair enough, then make the movie about that. Not don't saying you're basing it on the woman.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And like, I think sadly, all too many people will be able to relate to some of the things that the doctors were saying to
Yeah,
her at points. And I found that quite difficult to watch.
same here.
I think my personal experience, thankfully, I've not experienced those kind of dismissive comments. But I know that there are a lot of people within the chronic illness community who have.
Yeah, I've heard them quite a lot.
Yeah.
I've heard the tests look normal and then they don't do any more. You're like, yeah, but it's not normal though. Once someone asked me how much I drank alcohol before, I don't really drink.
Yeah.
You know, occasionally, but not often. I was like, nah, I'd run like 2 months, mate. So
Yeah.
I got people that just told me it was all in my head and stuff like that. Like, it does make you feel like you are going crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it really
It is
does.
kind of like gaslighting in that way, I guess.
It really makes you question yourself and what you're feeling.
I think it's really difficult because obviously the doctors in question have to try their best to follow the science and the results that they've got. And they're doing their best. And like you say, they're taught quite often to think, when they hear hoofbeats, to think horses, not zebras.
Yeah.
So they're kind of doing what they're trained to do. But it's important to recognize the impact that can have on the people and the patients going through it themselves. So I think this film did touch on that quite nicely.
They did. I did find those bits sort of hard to watch. I was like, it did remind me of sort of my experiences. So I was like, I did think was quite good.
And I have to say, whoever directed the scene with the MRI machine, that MRI machine was literally nothing like any MRI machine I've ever seen. Like, there was no head brace. No. Everything was dark.
No earplugs.
The machine wasn't even that noisy in the film. No. I was like, I mean, you're taking one too many liberties there.
Where's the music that you get to pick on? Like,
you get music?
Yeah, I got music when I had it done.
I don't get music.
Mate, come to Adam Brooks.
I do go to Adam Brooks.
You do go to Adam Brooks. I got music.
What? That's mad.
I don't know why I got music. Well, yeah.
No, I fully just had to lay there in science for like an hour at a time.
Yeah, I got music. I found it really relaxing. I was in there for nearly an hour. I felt like 5 minutes. I just daydreamed the whole time.
I mean, I just zoned out, to be honest. Yeah. I'm going to request music next time I go in now.
Yeah, I loved it.
It would make the experience so much better, I'm sure.
Yeah. You can get this podcast on it.
Yeah. Oh my God. Definitely going to ask now. Anyway, trying to get slightly back on track with regard to the film. There's basically two other main points that I want to mention. Mm-hmm. And the first one of that is that this is obviously a very Americanized story. Obviously, it's set in America, it's written by American people, but it is fundamentally the story of a rich white family going through all of this. And let me tell you, in America, with the way that you have to pay for healthcare, the procedures that Susanna went through, the average person definitely could not have afforded this, even with healthcare, I think.
Like, even when she first went to the doctors, and they was like, your tests come back normal, but we're going to send you out for a blood test and MRI. You might get blood tests, but they don't send you for an MRI first thing.
No, exactly. And she even had one of the last procedures that they did to confirm her diagnosis was basically they cut open her skull to take a biopsy of her brain. And that procedure alone would have probably cost thousands and thousands, if not more, of dollars. And I just think that, particularly with the state of healthcare in America, that it just wouldn't work for the average family, let alone families on like low income or from disadvantaged backgrounds. And obviously there are people in these positions who can afford to do it, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, but it's just very difficult to see.
It's not the average story of what would happen.
Yeah. it
Yeah.
wouldn't work out that neatly for most people going through it, I think.
Yeah. Can we also mention after she got her brain surgery, the biopsy, like, whatever, her hair was meant to be cut 4 inches back. It was perfect.
Yeah,
Just mention that little thing.
there was no scar, there was no shaved head, there was nothing. She was just back normal.
There was none growing back longer or shorter, or the rest was longer. There's no cut. Like, it was perfect. Same hair length as it was before.
Yeah.
Ah.
That was one thing, actually. I forgot to say this earlier, but the other thing that really bugged me about this is that there is no mention whatsoever of her treatment or her recovery.
Yes,
There's a couple of bitty shots at the end that's like in the last 5 minutes where they're like, oh, she's trying to walk down the street again, and then it cuts to a scene of her back at work, fully functioning as if nothing happened.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, great. Let's just tell everyone that she got instantly fixed. Like,
no, like she's like, no, like it's so annoying. She's like, I had to relearn to do everything, walk and talk. It's like, show it.
Yeah, like it's a process. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, yeah, that did really get on my goat, honestly.
It's the same, because it's like people already think that once you're diagnosed, you're fine. And that's just, people watching that are just going to be like, oh yeah, see, she got fine. It's not like that.
Yeah. And I understand that because it's a film and they want to sell money, they have to make it into a story that people feel uplifted at the end. But I think there is a way that you can balance. Yeah, there's a way that you can balance the reality of the situation with making people feel empowered walking away from the film, you know?
Yeah.
And I just don't think they even tried to do that with this film.
Like what the actual person did with writing a book and advocating that is uplifting.
Yeah.
To show you a little bit more what it took for her to get back so she was able to do that, and then show her doing that. Like, that is uplifting. Her actual story is uplifting.
Yeah, exactly.
So use that ending.
And there was no miracle cure. Like, it took hard work and like so much effort to get that. Yeah. Sorry, I could probably rant about that for a really long time, so I'm not gonna let myself.
There's another one, Stephen. Okay.
Yeah.
He annoys me. Let's just make that clear.
He annoys.
He seems like a well, no, not him. Like, he seems like a lovely guy. Bit of the way we were talking about what the character was like, but like in real life, like when I tell someone I've got my illness, half of them run.
Yeah.
Like, they're only together for like 3 months, but the majority of people wouldn't when they haven't been together that long.
Yeah. I think I agree.
Like they don't get married, so like in that story, in most stories that wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
so, like,
and I think, ironically, actually, I walked away from this film thinking that I sympathised most with Stephen out of all of it.
So
and I was like, why am I walking away from a film that's supposed to be the story of a woman's journey with chronic illness, thinking, oh, you know what, that Stephen guy was really great. Oh dear. He does seem like a really great guy, to be fair. And they did get married, and I think they're probably still happy in their life together, which is great.
Exactly. He's like 1 in a million. Like, he should be like supported, like clapped. Like, he's a good guy.
And then the other thing that I would say is that there was a lot of mention in this film about bipolar, schizophrenia, psych wards, which is used a lot.
Yeah.
And it was always talked about in a very derogatory way, as though like, oh my goodness, my daughter could never be sent to the psych ward. She's not crazy.
Yeah. Like, oh my God. Like having schizophrenia or bipolar is such a bad thing. It's not, because we've got it. There's medication that you can use. Like, people with schizophrenia and bipolar live normal lives.
Yeah, exactly. It was made out to be this hellish place that was, oh, I can't believe they would ever consider sending my daughter Susanna there.
Yeah.
And it was like obviously it's not ideal and perhaps not what you'd hoped for your daughter. Yeah, you would go through with it.
Yeah, if it's the best place for your child, I didn't like that either.
I just think, if mental health is important to you, it could be quite difficult to watch those parts of the film, I would say. When they were doing like the small 2-minute montage of her recovery, they had this voiceover, and the quote that just really kind of got it for me was, Just think how many people throughout history have been diagnosed with bipolar or schizophrenia or just plain crazy. And I was
Yes.
like,
Oh my God.
did you have to say that? You know?
You could have just said, just think people being diagnosed with bipolar schizophrenia when they had this certain illness, or when they
Yeah,
had
or
a
there was
different
another
illness.
explanation.
Yeah. Yeah, do that so they're getting the wrong treatment. Don't go, I'm
Yeah.
just plain crazy. Like, no. I genuinely I just went, oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Exactly. It was just such an eye roll moment. I was just
Yeah.
like, oh my God. So I'm making this up off the spot. If you
Okay.
had to rate this out of 5 zebras, it's our own new rating system. If you had to rate this film out
fancy.
of 5 zebras, what would you give it?
Oh, 1.5.
1.5. Wow. That is a scathing review.
It had some good points, which 1.5, but the whole, how it wasn't mainly focused on her, how they were with mental illness. I think it could be more harmful than it was positive for the chronic illness community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
No, I can see that.
yeah, what would you
I can
give
see
it?
that. I think it was an engaging watch, and there were certain things in it that were well represented, and I appreciated that. But I agree with you; it's far outweighed by a lot of other bad issues that just weren't touched on at all. Um, I think I'm gonna be slightly more generous. I think I'm gonna give it 2 zebras out of 5.
So, it's 1 3/4 is our
1 3/4 from the both of us there. So take
quick
that as you
maths.
will. Maybe give it a watch, maybe don't, based off our recommendations.
We were very highly reviewing it, as you can tell.
Yeah, and we're obviously very, very qualified to be making these
Yeah.
judgments on film.
We know what we're talking about here.
So, next up, I thought it might be fun if we play a few little games.
Let's do it.
So this week, I've set up a little game for Kate to play.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a very long game, don't worry. And I saw, I think it was on Twitter or something, the collective noun for a group of zebras. And I thought it might be fun to get Kate to guess the collective noun for some different animals. So, first off, I would be remiss not to start with zebras. So what do you think the collective noun for a group of zebras is?
A newspaper.
Where did you get that from?
No, because of the joke, the black and white and red.
Oh my God. Well, you're wrong.
It should be, though. It should be.
The actual answer, and I love this actually, is a dazzle of zebras.
Oh, I actually knew that. I've been told that before. I do like that. We do dazzle.
Yeah, I love that. I think
Yeah.
that's probably my favourite collective noun that I've looked
That's
up.
definitely better than newspaper.
Yeah, I am afraid so. I have a couple more for you, and some of these I'm hoping you'll know, and some of them might be a little bit more tricky.
All right.
So, first of all, do you know the collective noun for a group of owls?
Hooters.
Wow, your brain really went there, huh?
Yeah, it really did.
Well, I'm only a little bit sad to tell you that that's not right.
Damn it.
The answer, and I also love this one to be fair, is a parliament of owls.
Oh, fancy.
Is that not
class.
great? They
Yeah.
give off parliament vibes, don't they?
They do. I do trust them more than most in Parliament, though, to be fair.
Well, I mean, with the things going on in the world at the moment.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay, and then final one, and I also really like this one, to be fair. I picked all my favourites, as you can tell. Do you know the collective noun for a group of hippos?
Bartholomew?
Not quite, not quite.
I'm blaming my mind mist.
Yeah, no, do it. Do it.
Okay,
You've got to make the most of it.
Yeah, I'm using my illness where I can. It's not my fault.
The answer is a bloat of hippos.
Okay, I've genuinely never heard that before.
Do you not just think that's great though? Like
that is, yeah.
Oh, honestly, I love it.
Who's the hippo from Madagascar? What's her name? Gloria.
Is it Gloria? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to call it, but I couldn't think of the name, so I thought of Bartholomew.
Bartholomew. I mean, it's a great name.
That's what came after Gloria in my head, apparently.
If we have any Bartholomews listening to the podcast, please do give us a shout out. I would love to hear from you.
Love your name. Love your names. And I'm sure you're nothing like hippos. Apart from Gloria, she was sassy and amazing. Love Gloria.
You know, I never really got into Madagascar as a film series, I'm afraid. I feel like it was just slightly after my generation of like Pixar.
I'm the same generation as you.
I know, but I don't know. Maybe I lost my childhood innocence too early. I don't know.
I have a lot of young cousins. All my friends had younger brothers and sisters, so I was watching it all with them, to be fair.
That might be it, yeah.
So, yeah,
for me, the pinnacle will always be like Toy Story 2
or
A Bug's Life.
Love A Bug's Life.
I love both of those films, honestly. And the music as well for both of them is incredible.
Yes, so good. I think the caterpillar in A Bug's Life.
You know, when the Sarah McLachlan song in Toy Story 2, When She Loved Me, that chokes me up still to this day every time.
My moving from Pixar, mine's Disney, right? Mulan, best Disney film.
Yeah,
she is an icon. That girl.
Yeah,
she is. Forget Frozen. Frozen. Such feminists, they're such good role models for women. Mulan saved China. Can we just make that clear? She saved China. Right. Thank you.
The Think Zebra podcast deeply supports Mulan.
I really do. But the reflection song in that, every time I hear it, I'm like,
that is a banger.
Yeah. So good, isn't it? Yeah, every time I'm like, oh my god, stop it.
Right, now.
Moving on.
We've got to keep this thing moving, otherwise knowing us, we will just keep talking forever and nobody wants to listen to that. So
no, because we will go random places, as you can tell already.
So the next little game I wanted to play is one that I shamelessly stole from another podcast that I love. It's called Not Too Deep, hosted by Grace Helbig. I don't know if you know it, but it holds a dear place in my heart and has, honestly, when I used to commute to sixth form on the bus every day, it really saw me through. I mean, it made me laugh. I snorted a few times in public on the bus. So I got lots of strange looks, but it was a great time. So on this podcast, they always ask the guest a stupid question. Well, two stupid questions, one of which we'll follow up with next week. But the first one that I'm going to ask you, Kate, is if you could throw a cold piece of spaghetti in somebody's face, who would it be and why?
This is going to sound really horrible. Okay.
Yeah.
My nephew.
No, I think that's an incredible answer.
But he's only like 6-7 weeks old.
Oh, wow. How would he even react to that?
Like, not now, when he's older.
Okay. I would probably do it now, not going to lie. Now you put the idea in my head.
I am tempted. Imagine just taking a photo, just a piece of spaghetti. I really hope my family don't listen to this now. They're going to kill me.
I reckon one of them will agree with you and they'll start scheming ways that you can do it.
I really hope so, because otherwise I'm going to be the evil one from now on. But it would just, I mean, like, looking at just laying down. But what about you? Who would you throw your cold? I'm guessing you're going to be nicer than me.
I don't know about nicer, but I just think it would be hilarious to throw a cold, wet piece of spaghetti in my sister's face. for absolutely no reason. Yeah, I just think she would have a great reaction to it. I think she would just have a moment of like, what? And I would love to see it.
No, I couldn't ditch my brother. He would punch me. So he's off the
No.
list.
I think maybe that's why sisters are just better.
We are, thank you. We really are.
Because my sister would probably never do anything like that to me, but you know I would do it to her.
Yeah. I want to do it to Harry, but I don't know if I want to suffer the consequences.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to go away and try and sneakily do it to these people and film it so we can put it on our Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that would be funny. Okay, if you want us to do that, then send us a message on our social media.
Yeah, if you don't want me to do it to the baby, you can suggest other members of my family. Because I understand a lot of you.
Tell her to do it to the baby. She needs to do it to the baby.
But I also understand how a lot of you aren't as mean as us two and think it's not fair on a baby.
So yeah, let us know and maybe we'll try and sort that out. And then this brings us very neatly up to our final segment, which is sort of a Q&A kind of thing. We put out on our Instagram and maybe our Twitter. I can't remember if I put it out on Twitter as well, but we definitely put it on Instagram.
We did do that.
If you had any questions, to send them our way and we'll give you a little shout out and we'll answer them on the podcast for you.
And surprisingly, we actually got some.
I am so shocked that we got any questions.
Genuinely, I was like, oh my God.
So thank you to Charlie, our friend from secondary school, who sent in the first and second question. The first one is there anything that you would change about your chronic illness?
I would say the invisible part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's why people don't believe you.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, personally, not having it, but, would be the invisible part. What about you?
I mean, yeah, my instinct was like, if I could make it not last for a lifetime, that would be great. Yeah. You know? If I could just have it as a one-off, sure, fine, I'll do that. I feel like that's probably outside of the bounds of this question and not quite what Charlie meant. So I think if there was one thing that I would change about my chronic illness, so I've always kind of grown up doing quite a lot of sport. And I know that sounds like a humble brag, but it's always been a great kind of stress reliever for me.
Yes, same here. And you like the impact it has on being able to do it.
Yeah, the impact, like, for example, for me, whenever I have surgery, it means that for 2 weeks, maybe a month afterwards, I'm not allowed to do exercise for fear of bursting open the wound or like my stitches pulling or something happening. So it means semi-regularly, I'm just not allowed to do exercise for quite a while. And I think that kind of impacts my mental health quite a lot because I've grown up using exercise as a stress reliever.
I feel you so much for this.
Yeah.
Like, I've had to stop coaching in most of my sports and that, and it's like, I can't even exercise every day. Or like when I want to, and it's so annoying, isn't it? Like, you go into yourself because you're used to doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Thank you. I do pride myself on giving good answers to questions. So,
well, you've won it here. I mean, you might ruin the next one, but you've got it on this one.
Oh, I'm bound to ruin one of these at some point. So the next thing that Charlie said is...
Thank you again.
Thank you again, Charlie. You're wonderful. We love you. What is one fact not related to your illness about you both?
I hate these fact questions. I don't know what to say.
I'm always so bad at thinking of answers to these on the spot.
Oh, God. I do obstacle course racing.
That's a good one.
I marshal, take part sometime, ran one to raise money.
Nice. What's one fact about me that doesn't relate to my chronic illness? That's such a hard question. Like you know when
Oh,
someone asks you to talk about yourself and you're like, well,
yes,
this is the subject I know most about, and yet I can't speak.
yeah. Or they're like, what's the most interesting thing about you? Nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing interesting.
Um.
Oh.
Okay, I can't think of an interesting fact about myself. So instead, I'm going to tell a slightly embarrassing story and hope
Oh,
that is
yay.
enough. As I said, I grew up doing a lot of sport and I was really, really into swimming. I still am. I love it. But obviously, with pools shut everywhere at the moment, I can't do it. Um, but this one time, I was racing at Ponds Forge in Sheffield, which is the national pool. Um, and it was in between racing sessions. So my sister and I went to take a lunch break outside to get away from the pool because normally at race meets, you're there for like 12 hours at a time and it's really exhausting to be on poolside the entire time. So we took a lunch break, we went to go get lunch, and then we walk back for the start of the next session. We go down and rejoin our teammates who decided to tell us that while we were away, none other than Becky Adlington, the Olympic swimmer, came around, took photos with all of them, signed like parts of their kit and signed things for them. And nobody told my sister or I while this was happening. So we just completely missed out on the opportunity to meet
I
Becky
mean,
Adlington.
that's your own fault.
I needed lunch. What was I supposed to do?
Not eat lunch. It's obvious, Peter,
The
obvious.
sacrifices you have to make to meet people who are important, honestly.
Yeah, don't eat lunch.
I had a great lunch, to be fair, but
Ah,
I did wish
ah,
I met Becky Adlington, I'm not going to lie.
yeah, but what'd you have for lunch?
I think it was like a tuna pasta bake or something. So it was a decent
Ooh.
lunch.
Yeah, I don't know if it tops Becky.
I don't think it does. I don't think it does.
No.
And I'm still quite, well, yeah, I'm bitter about it. I'm still bitter. So the next question is from Jess, who we know from secondary school. She's also very lovely. We love you, Jess. Thank you for sending a question.
Thank
Um,
you. Okay, so Jess asked, do you think the TV series and films that show chronic illness on screen accurately depict it? Is there something you would like to see more of these in series or films? So, as we have mentioned earlier, we'll be doing our segment reference to chronic illness in the media each week. But is there any really that you can think of in particular in that?
I don't know. This is a really great question, and
It is so good.
I'm hoping that we might be able to pull out some trends of things that we keep seeing happen over the course of our series, discussing these representations in media. I feel like one of the tropes that we kind of already touched on today is the fact that there is a tendency to give the illusion that there is a cure or a solution to chronic illnesses, when that just isn't the case for so many people out there.
No, and I think it's a lot of the time, especially a TV series, if it's on like a medical program, you get like there was EDS on one before, but which like they're like, oh, we don't know what you've got, and your test coming on, we're going to try every single test, we're going to figure out who you get it. Like that doesn't happen in real life, and I feel like that, especially in TV series, like the way it's shown is if like they try everything to help you find it.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
it's a real task to get diagnosed, especially when it's something not common.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's the other thing. A lot of chronic illnesses are really rare, don't have a lot of research done on them. People don't really understand much about them a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So in order to reach these diagnoses and things, it is a difficult journey sometimes. And that doesn't necessarily get represented, or it's not really an honest reflection a lot of the time.
No, they don't. Yeah, they don't really see the journey before the diagnosis and the journey after the diagnosis properly.
Yeah.
They see the when they go, oh, this is what we've got, but they don't show the actual before and after it.
Yeah, you don't see like the day-to-day lived realities of what it means to have.
Which I think needs to be more of. Like where it's on like a soap, which is on every whatever days they're on or whatever. Where it's on one of them, like EastEnders or that, and you have someone living it there, and so you see it on that or something. It needs to be represented more in some way.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was going to say that that's part of the reason why I wanted to start that segment, because either it's just not talked about or it's not represented fully, and people get aspects of it right, but they never quite get the full picture, you know.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Other than that, I don't know if you've got anything else to say currently, Kate.
I suppose thank you for listening would be the main thing.
If you've made it this far and you've enjoyed it, then we're very glad. Make sure to check out our social media channels. We're, as I said before, we're Think Zebra Cast on Instagram and Twitter. We have a YouTube account, the Think Zebra Podcast. We have an email that you can get in contact with, thinkzebrapodcast@gmail.com. You can suggest topics, questions, film, TV recommendations, all sorts, or even just drop us a line and tell us a bit about your story. We'd love to hear from you.
We want to get as many people's stories on here as we can. So
yeah, and we want to talk about things that you want to listen to as well.
Yeah,
we don't just want to ramble about nothing.
No, tell us what you guys want to hear, because we'll be happy to discuss it.
So do send them our way if you have any ideas. And the other thing that I would also say is that if you're aware of any support services or things that you found to be really helpful or reliable throughout your journey, definitely also send those our way, because we might be able to share them. We might be able to try and send them to people who might need them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we want to be able to help in any way we can. So
exactly.
if you guys can help us do that.
Yeah, it's a team effort. We've all got to pull in the same direction and we'll get more done, you know? Our DMs are always open. You can slide into them.
Slide right in. Anytime.
We will hopefully see you very soon in episode 2.
Fingers crossed.
All right. Stay safe, stay golden, think zebra.
Always. Bye-bye.
Bye.